everyone thinks they want to be their own boss and be like a founder or CEO or whatever. And there are days, it's more like hours for me. 1 hour, I'm like, this is the sickest thing ever. Like we're killing it. The next hour, it's like, what the heck are you doing? You're a moron. Like this is all going to crash and burn. It's like an hourly basis. It's such a roller coaster.
Startups with Stu is a podcast for anyone living or wanting to live the startup life, either as a founder or a team member. Your host, Stuart Draper, was a 9-time Inc. 5000 honoree before age 40. This show dives deep into the exhilarating world of entrepreneurship with guests that are seeking advice from Stu for their startup or business owners that want to share their entrepreneurial journey. Listeners always walk away with actionable ideas of what to do to take their startup to the moon. Startup life can feel like a roller coaster ride. And with Startups with Stu, you're likely to turn your roller coaster ride into a rocket ship ride. Get ready to uncover the secrets to startup success from visionary founders and savvy investors who've transformed groundbreaking ideas into thriving ventures.
This episode is brought to you today by PodUp. PodUp.com is the leading all-in-one AI-powered podcasting software. If you've ever considered having a podcast, want to get started, go to PodUp.com and check it out.
Having a podcast has been one of the funnest things I've ever done in my life. And one of the reasons is because of the interactions I get to have with such cool people. I've said that before in other episodes in some other way, shape, or form, but trust me, if you want to connect with people, start a podcast. On today's Startups with Stu episode, I have with me Mr. Trevor Erickson in person.
How's it going?
Live action. Trevor, so good to have you on the show. Thanks for being here.
Yeah, glad it takes setting up a podcast to get us to sit down for 30 minutes nowadays, but you got to change that.
We do need to change that and spend more time together. Hopefully this winter in the snow we get to do some of that. So Trevor Erickson used to be the CMO at Stu Kent. He was the first hire that I ever made at Stu Kent. And I'm doing this series of episodes where I'm having the original team members that helped me take Stu Kent to the moon on the show. Because Startups with Stu is all about the study of how entrepreneurs take their startup to the moon. And you were a big part of our success at Stu Kent. And obviously, I've thanked you before, but I'll thank you again and again for what you did to help us.
This is the first time I've heard it, actually. So I appreciate.
Shut up, dude.
No, I'm just kidding.
So Trevor is no longer at Stu Kent. Trevor, why don't you tell everyone what you're doing now?
Yeah, so, man, time flies, but probably about 3 years ago, roughly 3 years ago, probably around 3 years, left Stu Kent. My brother-in-law and I had a power sports graphics company
Called
Deviant Inc. We print and ship, so we've got a platform, an online platform. It's kind of like back in the day when you could go to like Les Schwab and you could put your car on like that big box screen, and you could like drag and drop rims on your vehicle and be like, and wish you had like your car looked that cool.
Oh yeah,
right?
Yeah.
Our platform's similar, but with custom graphics. So you can throw a dirt bike, a side-by-side, snowmobile. Throw your snowmobile up on the screen, and then we've got a ton of graphics that you can put on your machine and then customize them as much as you want. Order it. We print and ship it directly to the customer. Customer installs.
Installs.
We ship all over from the northernmost parts of Canada and Alaska to Saudi Arabia.
How often do people go, gosh, I love my rap, but I suck at rapping?
We've gotten a lot better in providing like video, like step-by-step walkthrough on how to install. It's kind of like a big puzzle, super forgiving. You can put pieces on, pull them back off until you like how it sits. But with that said, probably 50% of our customers still will like go to a power sport dealership and have someone pay someone. Yeah.
Okay.
But it's a good time.
But they got options, and you're making it fun for them. It protects the
machine, makes it look completely different, makes it look unique.
Yeah.
And there's nothing better than someone, you walk out to your machine and some rando is out there with their phone taking photos of your toy. So, because it looks so cool.
Okay, so when you started Deviant Inc. with Mac, that's the co-founder of Deviant Inc.?
Yeah. So we didn't start it, we bought it.
You bought it. Okay.
Yeah.
And you did that while you were still at StuKent.
Yep.
Right? That's something as a founder you got to decide, like, what's your comfort level with letting people work for you full-time, get paid during the day, and then side hustle things at night.
Yeah, and ours worked out pretty well because my partner was the production guy. So, a lot of the grind, like the day-to-day grind, was in the production, like getting wraps out the door. And I still don't know how to run the machines. So like he was the one who was printing and shipping and getting everything out. And I was really the marketing behind it.
Yeah. And I always felt like I could trust that you were putting in the time and energy in StuKent and knew how to separate the two well. Is that true? Or were you like working 45, 50%?
When like every afternoon I was gone for like 4 hours? No, just kidding. No, I mean, StuKent was pretty intense. So like,
it just took your time whether you wanted it or
whether
not.
I wanted it or not, like
the team needed you.
It wasn't like I was just siloed down in the basement at StuKent. Like if I was gone, people would be like, where the heck where's Trevor?
You were such a contributor. Speaking of being a contributor, in the early days at StuKent, it was like you wearing lots of hats. You helped us with
I loved that, dude. I loved it.
You loved that stage? Yeah. Tell us about that.
In comparison to where it was when we all left, right? It was just way different. We could come up with some crazy idea and execute on it the same day, right? Mm-hmm. And if it didn't work, all right, not going to do it again. And then we iterate and try something else. And
we ran through those ideas a lot together because I enjoyed marketing. I knew that marketing was going to help us sell.
And you're a marketer in the core, I believe. So yeah, we felt we were on the same wavelength a lot of the times. I think what worked well, in a young startup, there's not a lot of cash, right, to go around and hire an individual to do this one thing and another one to do this other thing, right? And I think a lot of my side hustle, entrepreneurial mindset, and I tell everyone this, like, get yourself a good side hustle or a couple good side hustles, because the things you learn in those side hustles,
finding a new tool that's going to help you, all that stuff.
You don't necessarily get to experience that like in my day-to-day stuff at StuKent, but because at nights I was doing these other things, I was able to take that skill set. I mean, dude, we were copywriter, photographer, videographer, web designer, and builder.
Email copywriter.
Basically everything.
Paid ads, anything.
Ads, social media, everything. And I didn't get all that, from StuKent. It was stuff I was doing that night,
Yeah. You were learning on the side as you went. So that is a value that comes from letting team members work on side hustles while they are working for your startup. And by the way, you're going to naturally in your startup attract team members that enjoy they have their own dreams of starting something. That's a part of why they want to work with you, is because you're doing it. And they're like, I want to see what he does and how he does it. We just set contractual things along the way. Like one of them was, if you have a side hustle, you tell the CEO and he knows what's going on. And two, we had this other agreement that was like, you're not going to compete with us. So if you're going to start something else, it's not going to be to become my competitor.
Yeah, using the same email list to spin off something else, right?
I think one of the reasons I thought it'd be cool to have this series of episodes with like the original team members at StuKent was so that a founder could think about, as they build their team, which is so critical to get right, what it's like to work with the CMO, why it's important to work with the CMO. See, I'm a marketer, but the very first hire I made was a marketer. The reason I did that was because I knew that I needed to focus on a lot of other things And while I would love focusing on marketing, it wasn't the thing that was going to help the business the most. And so I needed someone who could just take care of that for me and I could work with closely to make sure they were doing a good job.
Yeah.
But like working with me isn't always easy. I think for a lot of founders, they're so driven. They want it so bad that they're going to push the team pretty hard. And I think there's value in some of that. But like, what was I got thick skin. This is probably the juiciest part of the show here.
Oh, boy.
Tell me, what was like the struggle of working with me?
So you and I are like, I would say we're very similar in a lot of things and we're different in many things. I would say
in a complementary way in the things that were different probably too, right?
Sure. I would say I'm way more chill. Like
even.
I'm
a little more highs
That's
and
exactly.
lows.
Yeah. I'm pretty good at being even. And you're this, okay? Or you were this a lot.
You're saying I improved over time?
Yeah. So the Stuart Draper,
that's like
the Stu that people know now is not the Stu that Stu once was, which is a good thing, right? But, you know, I think it helped in our scenario because I'd get my employees who would have my team members who would have interactions with you, intense moments, right? And to me, I'm like, it's not that intense. Like, that's just how Stu is. And they're coming back to me and like, this dude hates me. Like, he hates me, does not like me. I'm like, no, like, he cares so much. Like, this is it for him, you know? Like, you got to just like see through that and not let it affect you. But the moment, I think, Stu, your peak, okay? I think when you were like, I need help.
Oh, okay. When I needed help.
We're sitting in just a bunch of college students, and they're
this story.
And they're I forgot what
they were doing market research.
So they're doing market research for us. We would kind of do these projects with them multiple times a year, and it was hit or miss, right? In this particular one, we felt like we gave pretty clear direction on like what we wanted. And like the whole semester goes by, they come and deliver their like final presentation. And I don't know the exact thing that triggered you, but for what we were expecting was here, and they were like not even in the ballpark. And you had a pen in your hand or a marker, and you stood up.
I stood up?
And you threw it down on the ground.
Oh, I'm not proud of this moment.
I don't remember exactly what you said, but it was extremely intense. Right towards them.
Like I came at them.
Came at him. You're like, 3 months and this is all we got? Like, what have you guys been doing? You know? And that was your peak. I think after that we left and you started progressively getting better. I think you realized like how to kind of control that or simmer that down a little bit. Yeah. It wasn't like you were a jerk. It was, I've been around you a lot. I just knew Stu's intense. Like this was a lot for him. A lot's on the line. And when people aren't matching that with you, I think that's when you get heated.
When they won't come up to the level
of,
hey, we're here to
play. Like, don't you see, like, I'm here to play. Like, it's game on.
Yeah, this episode is brought to you by Entrepreneurs Anonymous. That's where I went after that fall apart moment. I think, look, there were moments where I wanted to grab a chair and just throw it out a window because I felt so passionately about getting it right.
Yeah.
And bringing a return to investors, I think, was something that really took me to another level.
And sorry to cut you off, but like,
yeah, no, you're good.
Everyone else didn't have that weight on their shoulders, nor did they know, because you kept that pretty close to your chest.
Yeah.
Like, whatever pressures you were facing because of that, like no one else knew. And so that's why it would come out, because you had a lot of weight, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, your uncle and dad were the last two investors in. And at that point, it was was kind of easy to take their money because I felt like we're going to make it. Like the writing's on the wall. This is all going to work. So, but there were so many others that I loved and appreciated that were angels that invested in us. And it was like, I can't let these people down.
Yeah.
I felt that so deep in my bones. And I was so happy to send them a payday when we got to that place. And I hate to jump from where we just were into the payday moment, but I think this segues well into that. The reason I hate to jump from the struggles early days to the payday is because it makes it sound like it was an overnight success.
Yeah.
And, then there was the payday. It's just not how it worked. We grinded and worked so hard for those 8 years together. Yeah. But let's talk payday for a second. You were able to get some stock options as the first employee in the business.
Yeah.
As you were going along, how did you think about having ownership in the business? Did that help you?
I think what that does is it doesn't make it feel burdensome to work after 5 p.m. Right? Like the 8 to 5, that's like it's non-existent at all. Right? Because, if there was something that had to get done at 10 p.m., it didn't feel like I was going out of my way having to do this, right? It was the baby, like it was the thing we were cooking, And so seeing that, I think there was more passion involved, obviously. And it also, it eliminates, because things will happen, frustrations will come in, and I think you don't let them explode or expand very much. Like you shut it off because you have equity, you have stake in the game, right? So I very much love entrepreneurship, and so it was.
Yeah.
Some people, I think they're like, oh, cool, I got like whatever,
I think, there's two things at play that would make you, maybe more than two, but two key things that would make you want to stick around and work at 10 p.m. and give your heart and soul to it. One was definitely the equity, but two was that you're an entrepreneur, you have an entrepreneurial mind, and you realize like sometimes you just got to do whatever it takes. I think always conscientious as young dads that we wanted to have work-life balance, but that sometimes that balance isn't a time balance as much as a quality of experiences you're giving your kids and things like that kind of experience.
Yeah. And I will say, like, I was a digital marketer. Yeah. Like I was a couple years out of school. So the day that I met you actually literally downstairs of where we're at right now, and you're sitting there keyboard punching, right? At Gator Jacks. And you're telling me about this simulation thing that you're cooking up. It literally took seconds in my brain to be like, this is genius. Like I just got done with going through university, and I wanted to be a digital marketing graduate, and there was nothing, like there just wasn't anything there.
Yeah.
So timing, like connection, right place, right time. Like I knew right then, like this doesn't exist anywhere. Who's gonna go? Like we're gonna go build this thing.
Yeah.
And so, there's lessons to be learned there. I mean, the market and the product fit to market was extreme, perfect timing. Like
those three things, product market fit and timing, are so critical for the success of an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
Right. Like you can be really charismatic, really good public speaker, really good marketer, really good at sales, really good at a lot of things. But if your product and market and timing aren't a perfect match, it's really hard to grow and succeed, wouldn't you say?
For sure.
So you're kind of growing Sleddercast. Trevor is the host of another podcast you should check out called Sleddercast.
If you don't like snowmobiling, you may get through one episode and be like, that's cool. But yeah, so we're snowmobiling specific with the Sleddercast.
And you have grown up around snowmobiles, love snowmobiles. You taught me how to snowmobile, and I now love it because of that.
Yeah.
But like, why podcasting? You're a genius digital marketer, grew a business from zero to tens of millions in valuation. So you've done it
Yeah.
and succeeded. Why podcasting as a form of marketing?
Yeah, I would say my philosophy has always been, and I've like almost overplayed it, is content and driving value through content. We're all human, and we don't like to be sold or marketed to all the time, right?
Yeah.
And so I've always come from the approach of like, man, these people got to view me as a friend, a buddy. And the only way they're going to do that is if I show up and provide value and enhance their life, right? Whether that's personally or as a business, because a business can do that. A business can show up, add value through content. And by doing that, you're staying obviously top of mind. They may not be a buyer today, but in 2 months from now, when they're a buyer, like, because I have deposited so much into that relational equity account,
Yeah.
like, I'm first on the list of where they're going to go spend money. So that's kind of the background there. With podcasting though, I've been a listener for years, man.
Same.
Like we've done the podcast stuff for years.
You put me on to Guy Raz, I think.
Maybe, I don't know.
He's How I Built This.
How I Built This, yeah.
Such a good podcast.
As a business though, so to go back to answer your original question, I look at that as content. I look at it as a couple of things. So with our podcast, I get to sit down, I get to purposely pick people out strategically that I want to sit down and have a conversation with. Okay. Now that conversation may be one thing, but now the next time, sometime in the future, if there's some sort of a strategic partnership or strategic ask, I'm not just no name Trevor to this person. Like, we had a moment.
Yeah.
Right?
We spent time together.
We spent time together. So that's very strategic. The content side is also huge because now my content spread has a lot of different mixes to it. I'm posting really cool snowmobile or power sport content like out in the wild, but now I get to also sprinkle in like good conversation and good content that way. That then goes into social media. I can use it for print, digital. And one of the biggest things is it gives me another excuse to email. Email.
You get to hit inboxes with value.
With value. It's not just, hey, I got another sale going, or hey, come buy my stuff. It's, hey, here's 10 things not to do if you want to get sponsored in the power sports industry.
Yeah. It's genius, right? So I want to point out something. You never said, oh, it's about views and listens and downloads, likes, comments, shares. You said that it's content marketing. It's feeding your blog. It's feeding your video. It's feeding your social, right? That's number one. And then number two that you pointed out was, and the networking, the value of building relationships with people, the right people in chairs next to you is huge. So, and then you're helping them too, right? Like, not only are you getting to spend time with them, but you're helping them build their business by getting the word out about what they're doing. So
exactly.
That's just awesome. So what are some of you mentioned email. Email was huge for growing Stu Kent. Still is today. But what are some of the things you remember us doing early days from a marketing perspective that really helped us grow?
Yeah, I love this question.
Let's create a listicle here, a little bit of a list of a few things that we did.
Love this question, and I'll start off by saying I felt like we were cool dudes. Like, we were cool dudes back then.
We were so cool.
And we were entering, so I came from the sports, like the sports apparel business, crazy sports fan. And then all of a sudden you throw me in with these PhD, very distinguished professors, humans.
Yes.
And I got no business being in the same room with these guys and gals, right? Like, they are way above, but we were different. Like, the first show we went to, the first trade show, conference we went to, Florida. Can't remember where we're at in Florida. Orlando, I think, yeah. And those conferences are kind of deadbeat, not gonna lie. Pretty boring.
Yeah.
We showed up and we thought we were just doing this is like what we're gonna do. It's our first one. And we had humans all over our booth. So many humans that our neighbors to the side of us were like complaining.
Yeah.
Hey, they have too many people in front of their booth. Like no one can get to my space. Right.
And when we did our session,
yep,
they had to tell people, sorry, there's no more room in here.
Yeah. That's one key. Like I've always thought about this is if you can enter a space that you can step back and look and be like, man, it's kind of a boring place. And you can come in and like spark it with new and just excitement. Like that's turning heads.
Yeah.
It's stopping thumbs, right? So anyways, that was one of the things, right? So you wanted a listicle. Let's see if we can give you a listicle here of things that stood out to us.
So number one, conferences and find a way to like
turn
stand
heads,
out.
Stand out, right? Do things that don't scale. Okay. So when we first went to our first conference, we sent an email out to the attendee list that said, hey there, Mr. or Mrs. Professor, what's your favorite candy bar? We're going to go buy that thing and we're going to show up to the event and we're going to have it there for you.
And it can come from anywhere in the world.
Anywhere. I mean, we were buying stuff on Amazon from like other countries and getting it shipped to us. And we showed up to that conference and we had boxes of candy bars and with people's names on them, and we handed out candy bars. And most of the people, I don't think it was so much like, oh, I swear I got my favorite candy bar. They were like, are these guys really going to do this? And we did. And that stuck out to them. So do things that don't scale.
Yeah.
That's hard to, I mean, it's hard to scale, to go get people's candy bars and favorite treats.
Yeah.
The biggest thing is, we focused on a lot of different marketing things, but there was always one thing that was constant that we focused on, and that was, at least that I focused on, was email. We understood like that there's a lot of things we've got to do, but if we just get this one right, we're going in the right direction. And so growing our email list, man, it was like when we got an email form, it was like there wasn't even transfer of fund, like money. It was just an email, and we celebrated the crap out of that. Like we loved every email, and the time that we put in to the creation of the emails that we created. We were talking before the show, we would get so nervous. Like we'd have that email. We spent a long time crafting the copy. Back then you couldn't just throw in a bad email and tell ChatGPT to make it good. Like you actually had to put brain power into it. And we sat there and critiqued it. We went over the subject line. We tried to get that thing just dialed. And it was like, are you ready? Because we were sending these out to lots of people.
For us, it was a lot of
for
people,
us.
right? We'd be like, this is going to 5,000 people.
Yeah. We'd hit it. And I remember as soon as we hit enter, it was like, leave the room, quick laps around the building. Like,
see what's going to come from this. What's the
happen?
open rate going to look like?
Yeah. So
we would argue over subject lines.
Yep.
Like what? I don't think that's going to happen. FOMO. We got to get them to like really feel like they cannot miss this email.
Yeah. So we took that stuff pretty seriously back then, and we sent a lot of email. Like
over the top, right?
Like we weren't ashamed, and And
I read the book 10X, Grant Cardone. I listened.
Yeah,
I'll be honest. I don't read
book.
books that often. I listen a lot. 10X by Grant Cardone. If you're an entrepreneur and you haven't read it, go read it. Take it with a grain of salt. It's not all for you, but there's a key message from him is don't apologize for spreading the good word about your business.
Yeah.
If you believe in it, then go and push it. And so we were basically of the opinion, right? Like, I think the direction that I gave you was if you have a good excuse with good content, send 3 emails a day. If there's 3 different reasons to send something, send it.
Yeah.
Like, obviously, you're probably not going to have that, and you probably shouldn't do that many emails, but that's the mentality I want you to have.
Yeah. Yeah. And most people, even today, right, they would hear you say something like that and be like, you are spamming. Like, what the heck are you doing? And if you think of your own email consumption trends, right? Really, the only time I unsubscribe is if what they're sending me is totally off brand. Like, what the heck happened? Or it's just constant buy. That's it. If I don't like the email, I just don't open it. Like, I just move on with my day. I don't really care. But then there's the one time they send the email and it catches my attention and I consume it. And so a lesson to be learned is the business overthinks too much that the end consumer really cares that much about what you're doing. Yeah. They don't have a ticker that says, holy crap, he emailed me 3 times today already. I have no idea. Right? Like,
Okay. Taking a quick break from the episode. Sorry to interrupt, but I have to take a second and thank the great team at Pod Allies that helps me produce this podcast. Startups with Stu is not an easy undertaking. It takes a lot of work and team power to get this thing done. So the team I use for my podcast, podallies.com, go check them out if you are considering a podcast. If you've thought you have a dream for a show and you want to go make it happen, go to podallies.com and book a strategy call today. I promise you won't regret it. I was 8 episodes published. I was on, I think, my 12th recording with a guest. And that guest was like, hey, I think I'd like to do a podcast. And I introduced him to the Pod Allies team. He's entirely satisfied with the work they're doing for him. That's the beauty of podcasting, right? Like, I'm not out there day in and day out selling podcasting services. I invested in podup.com, the parent company of Pod Allies, and it's been a joy to work with them, but I didn't have to go and sell this $36,000 deal that came from just having a guest on my show. I think one thing that people don't understand with a podcast is there's more value to be had than just likes, listens, shares, follows, etc. subscribers. You're going to get more than that with a podcast. And one of the greatest benefits is the networking that you can do through your show, getting guests on the show. Speaking of the show or shows, let's get back to Startups with Stu in this episode. Forgive my interruption, but if you're interested, go check out podallies.com.
What else? What were some of the other things we did that helped us succeed? The webinars were big.
Yeah. So webinars, I would say a really big thing that I think we did, and it stressed us. Like, it was a big undertaking, was our first ProfCon, like, event that we put on in person in West Yellowstone.
That was so fun.
That was the moment where it was like, holy cow, we got people to fly to West Yellowstone, not a big hub, and we put on a show for them. It was a great show, and it snowed in June, made it even better. Like, they got to experience.
And like, when I asked people at the show, how many of you got to see a bear in Yellowstone? Like, half of them raised their hands.
Yeah.
It was wild.
Yeah. So, we put on in-person events. We were doing webinars every quarter. We were doing.
And the webinars were like an experience, right? Like, we were giving away stuff every time.
Yep. We were giving away, and it was all because it was kind of like we weren't doing podcasts back then. We talked about it a lot, but it was almost like our way of it was pretty much a podcast. Like, we would bring industry folk in, we would bring professors in, and we would just teach. They would teach and share knowledge and what was working and not working, and we would repurpose it. We would spin it up and squeeze as much juice as we could out of those episodes. And
if I were still CEO at Stu Kent, or if they said, hey, Stu, will you come back and be our CMO? The first thing I would do is say, we're starting a podcast.
Oh, yeah.
And we're actually doing one for every subject.
Yeah.
Dude, people don't understand the power of it. So, Trev, that's a good list of things. I think we haven't covered it all. Swag was really big for us.
Did a lot of swag.
Found ways to make sure that we weren't just doing everyday boring swag. Like, here's our logo on a t-shirt, you should wear it. It was like, what's a cool saying that everyone in our industry...
we nailed it with that first saying.
Which was?
Everything...
It's on the... How is it said? It's on the syllabus, isn't that it? Wasn't that it?
Yeah, wow. I can picture the shirt right now, but yeah, it's on the syllabus.
It's on the syllabus.
Yeah.
Like, professors have to say that all the time. Yeah. And so to have a shirt that said it was like, oh, I relate with that. And in turn, they related with us.
Yeah.
The 3D printer. Tell them about that.
Yeah. So that was another thing, kind of like the candy bar, thing we did is we had a little 3D printer up on the second floor in Stewkent HQ #1 in Little Rexburg, Idaho. And that thing was running like nonstop. It would break down. We would spend like half a day trying to fix it. We were doing all sorts of stuff, but we would print their names so they get their own nameplate. Professors would have their own desk top nameplate, and we shipped those out to new customers. If I believe so, when they first signed up to use our courseware, they would get kind of a package, and that was one of the things that and it had our logo on it, right? Like we did a lot of things, like we even webcam covers had our logo on it.
Yeah, now you could go as a professor to your desk, and you'd have your nameplate that had the Stewkent logo on it, and you could go to your laptop. If you didn't want your camera to be seeing you all the time, it could close and it said Stewkent.
Yeah, it was like, how many places can we get our logo on things that are actually useful, like aren't going to end up in the garbage, right?
And after a decade and having supported over 1 million students, I don't think there's a marketing professor on the planet, for sure not in the US of A, that doesn't know who Stewkent is and wouldn't immediately recognize the brand.
Yeah.
Would you agree with that?
I mean, I've been out of the game for 3 years, but
good point. Why'd you leave me, bro? Talk about that.
We're changing subjects like that, huh?
We can do that. This is a fun conversation, and I think people appreciate that.
Yeah. So, like I said, the demands of Stewkent were getting greater. Right? Like just brought in some private equity investors, right? Things were changing a little bit. It was slowly transforming from like this homegrown startup that we knew everyone, we knew every employee, to there's like 150 people here and like I don't see them every day. I don't see them on a monthly basis.
I don't know them by name.
I don't even know their name. Like this person keeps coming in the door. I don't know if they're like a worker on the building or if they're like an employee here. And then that entrepreneurial bug, like we had this graphics company and we were growing it on a night, like just in the hours that we were working, like in the evenings.
And you were like, if I just gave
and that what if, like what if like I just spent more time on this, like how much more could we grow that? And eventually that entrepreneurial bug just bit me and was like, you just got to go find out,
I totally hated it. I loved you still. I hated the idea of continuing with Stewkent without you and without Brandon. Like, you guys had become like brothers to me. Like, yeah, we were coworkers, and yeah, there were moments of working together. We didn't enjoy working together. Those were rare. I think overall we just loved it. And I loved our retreats.
Oh, yeah.
Getting to break away from the office. We did that every quarter, something fun, and
or challenging.
Every half year.
Something hard.
Yeah, we'd go on hikes.
Do hard things.
Even with like potential customers or partners, we would take them on hikes. One time
like
I thought
gnarly
Trevor
hikes.
just got us lost in the mountains with potential customers. Dennis, shout out to you if you listen to this.
Like sandals, like flip-flops and t-shirt and shorts, and we're
mountains.
like wading through creeks and jumping over trees.
Oh, but those were good, different things that we did. I think that I mentioned, that it hurt when you left, and it didn't hurt our friendship or brotherhood at all. But over time, as a founder, you're building this team, and you're giving them good opportunities to grow and be a part of what you're doing. And you start to feel this sense of like, I'm hooking them up, and they're doing great work for me, and I'm grateful for their work, but I'm hooking them up with a really cool business opportunity. And then some of them leave, and you're just like, why don't you get it? Like, you have to stick with this. What's wrong with you? And then you get to a place where it happens a few times and you're like, ugh, I don't need them anyway. Kind of a feeling starts to creep in. And I remember telling myself, like, that is the wrong feeling here.
I'm going to go prove them wrong. Like, I'm going to go make sure that they see like what they missed out by not staying here.
Yeah.
There's some good and bad to that frame of mind, right? Like it can really fuel you to like,
for sure. find a way to be like, they're going to wish they had been on this ride. We talked a lot about the rocket ship that Stu Kent was. We talked about Under Armour and how Stu Kent outpaced Under Armour its first 5 years in business. Every year, our sales were better than their first 5 years in business, and try to give people that vision. I share that to say, okay, so Trevor, there were other things, like we had a cool mission, and I tried to give vision, and then we had core values. How critical do you think those were, if at all, in growing Stu Kent?
For me, honestly, they weren't that
it didn't change.
If I'm being honest,
yeah,
it didn't change anything for me.
Yeah,
but I think you already knew that I was about that in the beginning, so it didn't change anything for me. And at times you could be like, that's kind of silly, But when you're bringing on so many new people, you have to have that stuff set up, or there's going to be some weird stuff that happens, and you're going to sit there and think, how did this person get here? Man, I had a good thing going, and then this bad apple came in and really messed things up. And so that's where, and I know you really enjoyed that interview, that last interview.
The culture
interview.
Yeah.
Me personally, I don't know how much I would have enjoyed that interview, but you really enjoyed it, and it was really nice to be like, hey, I think that they've checked all of my boxes, as far as skill set goes, but I'm really glad Stu's gonna look into their eyes deep and get a vibe if man, were they just fill me full of crap of what I wanted to hear, and are they gonna match up on mission and core values? We would go over those in our interview.
They became something that was talked about on Slack and other.
Yeah, but even in our interview, that stuff would come up. But it was that final interview where, did you ever have moments in those interviews with people where you're like, holy crap, how did manager guy, how did this person get to me?
There were a few times where that happened. It was rare. I think most of the time it was the manager got in a place of I need help.
Fast.
And I need it fast. And they, my mantra has always been hire slow, make sure that they're the right fit, because you don't want to have to fire fast, but fire fast if they're not. So yeah, I remember a few times going, man, why did they bring this person to me? I have to tell them it's a no, and I feel bad, but because they have the skills, but they're not going to fit our team for the long haul.
Yeah.
And that's not always easy, but it's so important. And I think every entrepreneur needs to make sure that you're giving people a cool opportunity. If you have a high growth startup, you don't think about, do I have the right people on the bus? It's, do I have the right people on the rocket ship?
Mm-hmm.
And that's the whole thing with startups with Stu. It's let's take your startup to the moon. And a part of doing that is building a team that can help you actually make that happen. We would talk early days, hey, we need $1 million. Let's hire people that can help us take it to 10. Yeah. Remember that? Uh-huh. And then 2 to 20 and 4 to 40. Let's think that big and let ourselves think 10x mentality.
Yeah.
What are some other takeaways? If you're talking to a founder and they're like, okay, tell me, what do I got to look for in the right CMO, my first marketing hire, or things like that. Give us some advice.
Yeah. So if I'm in your shoes, if I'm in that founder's shoes, and I need that first hire, okay, I'm a little bit biased because I was your first hire, right? And I feel like I added a lot of value really early. I would say you've got to find someone who, I'll do it. I'll figure it out. We can't do that. How are we going to do that? So you've got to have someone who doesn't care if they're picking up the phone and answering a support call. They're care.
Not above anything.
They're not above anything, right? They've got to have on their characteristic and their skill set chart, they have to be broad, not deep.
Yeah.
If that's your first hire and you only got one person, you have to be pretty good at a lot of things, not just extremely good at one thing. Like I said, if you are that first hire, because in today's world, you're gonna have to have photography. You're gonna have to know how to work a phone at the very least and capture capture content. You got to know how to do videography. You got to know how to craft an email, how to acquire email addresses, cell phone numbers. You've got to know how to like type and write stuff. You got to know the tools.
Absolutely.
GPT, the AI tools that can really help you maximize your one person team, right? Know how to use platforms like Shopify and WordPress, Wix, any of that stuff. Like that's a pricey bill to pay if you have to go pay an engineer or developer to do
Just
that
to do
for
the
you.
website stuff.
Just to make a little tweak. Like
Yeah.
you've got to be okay and comfortable. And maybe what that means is you're building some other website on the side as a practice grounds.
Yeah.
Mess up all you want over there. Work out all the tweaks there. But yeah, I would say, if I were to be teaching anyone, I personally feel like, because it worked for me, is having a wide skill set early on, right? As someone who's helping a founder.
So, Trev, you're now in founder life, your own man, doing this on your own. It's going well. I think the Deviant Inc. brand is sick. I think it really fits the target market. I think what you're doing with the Slettercast is genius. I see you at trade shows, follow you on social media. I'm like, this kid's got it. He's doing it. But what's the struggles? What are the things keeping you guys up at night right now? Maybe I've got a piece of advice for you.
Yeah. So, everyone thinks they want to be their own boss and be like a founder or CEO or whatever. And there are days, it's more like hours for me. 1 hour, I'm like, this is the sickest thing ever. Like we're killing it. The next hour, it's like, what the heck are you doing? You're a moron. Like this is all going to crash and burn. It's like an hourly basis. It's such a roller coaster. So you've got to be prepared for that and try and stay as level as you need to. The thing that we're like struggling with the most is, for like me personally, is that like, how do you stay level when, and we're a somewhat small company, like we run pretty lean, and if something doesn't work, like it hurts us. Like we have to
feel it so
we
easily,
feel it,
right?
yeah. Like we have to hit on a lot of the things that we do, and so if we don't, it doesn't mean maybe it doesn't mean that the business is going to fail, but what it means is like I'm not making money, right? Like there's not a huge organization that's just cutting me a paycheck.
Yeah.
Are
you doing the salary approach where you have like a set amount you're asking the business to pay you every month, or are you still going off of like when the business has money, pay yourself?
There's a salary.
Okay.
But can I go get better market value somewhere else? Yeah, for sure could.
You could go make more money on salary with a lot of other opportunities.
For sure, yeah.
But you like the freedom.
I like the freedom. The ability to grow that salary quicker when it's your own thing, right? And you can control a lot of that is like, that's, I think, why a lot of us do it. It's like,
A founder goes, yeah, I quit my job so that I could pick which 20 hours of the day I work.
Right? Exactly. That.
It's the truth. I mean, those early days, if you don't have the ability to just grind and go, yep, I still got too much to do to not take Saturday morning and catch up on all my emails and get my inbox a little more clear and get back to people that need me and read this long proposal from a partner, or review a contract because I better not afford an attorney for this one. I better just gut check it myself. Like, you got to be ready for that.
Yeah, it takes a special individual. I think we all know that, like as founders who are watching the show, like you already know that, you're in it, right? And anyone who knocks the not like the go find a good company, like I'm not, like I'm all for that too, right? Like there's a lot of good things that you can learn. I mean, I had some of my best years of life were 8 years at StuCant, and that was like you know, it wasn't all the time exactly what I wanted to be doing, but the people that you're around during that time is what makes it like worthwhile, obviously. Because when you go to entrepreneur life, you're like by yourself a lot in your own thoughts. You don't have like a weekly meeting where you get to like, hey guys, is this good? Like, should we be doing this? No, you're like on your own.
I think it's important for most entrepreneurs to get people that they can say, hey guys, are we doing this right? Do we like the way that the direction we're going? You know, there's founders that are lifestyle entrepreneurs. They're just going to do it on their own. They want to have the freedom of picking and choosing all the time and not having to have meetings. Even then, I think it's important to find some mentors and like a mastermind or something where you can get with other people and run ideas by others. It has been so fun to talk through some of this stuff with you. We need to do part 2 because we haven't talked about so many cool things we could cover.
Yeah, you gave me a list, and I don't think we hit everything on that list. So maybe a part 2 is set up.
Well, it's actually, I did it on purpose so I could hang out with you more, bro. So I don't know where we're going for lunch, but I'm looking forward to that. Trevor Erickson, the man, the myth, the legend, co-founder of Deviant Inc., former CMO of Stu Kent, a multi-time. He helped take it from 0 to tens of millions in value, and just a brother and friend to me forever. So thank you for being on the show today, bud.
Yeah, no problem.
Hey, founders, entrepreneurs, investors, and other listeners of Startups with Stu. Thank you for listening to this episode today. As I mentioned at the beginning, as I mentioned in the middle, I want to take a second again at the end and say, if you haven't yet and you're considering a podcast, go check out podallies.com. They sure help me a lot with the show. And I am so grateful for all that they do to help me accomplish Startups with Stu and get it out to the world so we can help more founders and take your startup to the moon. Go check out podallies.com and podup.com if you're interested in podcasting at any level.
Thanks for joining me on Startups with Stu. We have big goals to help millions of entrepreneurs. If you enjoyed this show, please take a minute to share it with someone else that needs to hear it, or leave a review. Remember, success is within reach for those who dare to dream big and take action. Until next time, keep pushing forward on your entrepreneurial journey.